Hi there, and welcome back to Collections Unboxing with me, Emma Daly, Director of Collections and Exhibitions here at the Seward House Museum. Now, I don't know if it's because of the new season of Bridgerton, but I've been thinking a lot lately about the tradition of women coming out in society known as debutantes. Now, we actually have the dress that Fanny Seward wore when she came out into society, and believe it or not, you might be familiar with it. It's the light purple dress shown in the Leutze portrait. Even more amazing is the fact that we still have the physical dress, and I've brought it out of textile storage to show it to you today. Before we look at the dress, why don't we learn a little more about the history of debutantes? So, where does this tradition come from? The idea of being a debutante, that is, making your debut in society, was seen in England as early as the 16th century. Queen Elizabeth I was the first monarch to start inviting young women to be presented at court in order to help them find suitable husbands. But this concept really took off in 1780 when England's King George III held the first Queen Charlotte's Ball in honor of his wife's birthday. This ball became an annual event that marked the beginning of the social season when young women from well-respected families would officially come out into society as debutantes on the hunt to make a good match in matrimony. By the Victorian era, there were strict guidelines for women wishing to be presented at court. A young woman would need a recommendation by a previous debutante, often a female relative. Wealthy American families wishing to marry their daughters into the British aristocracy might even pay a former debutante to secure her recommendation for the young lady. A debutante traditionally wore a white gown with short sleeves, elbow-length white gloves, a veil attached to the hair with ostrich feathers, a long train, and pearls. She was, of course, expected to have proper etiquette and a perfect curtsy. Debutante balls spread beyond the British Isles, taking root in many English territories and even former colonies. Here in the newly formed United States of America, President George Washington held debutante presentations in Philadelphia. Later held in D.C., balls would continue for the Washington elite into the 20th century. Now, not every debutante was strictly after a husband, nor did every young lady attend a grand ball. Many families held their own smaller events for women coming out into society, as was the case with our Fanny. In her diary, Fanny wrote that in October of 1862, she went to New York with her sister-in-law Anna, and the two women shopped for Fanny's first winter out in Washington society. She purchased many articles of clothing and accessories, including a beaver fur cloak. But the highlight was a new silk dress that Fanny described as being of an indescribable color, not magenta nor yet purple, but red at night and in the daytime inclining to purple. A new shade. On the morning of January 1st, 1863, Fanny accompanied her father, William H. Seward, brother Fred, and Anna to the White House for a reception held by President Abraham Lincoln and his wife, Mary Todd Lincoln. After the White House, the Sewards headed back to their Washington house for their own reception. Fanny changed into her new reddish-purple dress and received various guests, politicians, foreign ministers, socialites, and numerous Union generals. At the end of this diary entry, Fanny simply states, "Today was my coming out occasion." Much less elaborate than a debutante ball, this was probably preferable to the shy Fanny. All right, so let's take a look at this famous dress. So this is the configuration we see in the Leutze portrait. Her dress consisted of one skirt. We have these sleeves here, which are separate from the rest of the dress. We have this one bodice, but actually she had a couple of different ways that she could style this dress. So she also had this bodice here that can be paired with the skirt. You can see, of course, we have a little bit of staining, but given its age, I think it's still in remarkable condition. We have some other separate sleeves here that she could wear however she liked. And finally, we have this really chic long sleeve jacket with these gorgeous details, the buttons and the lace. So she can really get the most use out of this dress. Now, debutante balls still exist today across the globe, but they've largely fallen out of favor as society has become more egalitarian. Queen Elizabeth II ended the tradition of royal presentations back in 1958. And here in America, believe it or not, senior proms in high schools have largely replaced the role that debutante balls used to hold. That's all for today. Thank you again for joining me for Collections Unboxing. If you need me, I'll be waiting for the next part of season 3 of Bridgerton to drop.